Hello, everybody, and welcome to Who's He on TV. Now, yes, there's a slight little difference to the title there. I've now decided to call this little strand Who's He on TV as opposed to Who's He TV. Minor change, but to me, it makes a bit more sense and probably something I should have done when I first started this little side project away from the normal Doctor Who stuff. So, anyway, also, before I get cracking with the topic of this particular episode, usually with these things, I'm reading from a script. I use it for the video version and the audio only version. I have a script in front of me. But today, I'm completely winging it. So this is going to be a little bit more stuttery, I should say, than it usually has been in the past. So, here we go then. So, the topic of this episode of Who's He on TV is the recent Amazon Prime show Fallout. Now, Fallout is a game that I haven't really played. I dabbled in Fallout 3, never really got on with it. Then I managed to get hold of Fallout 76, which was a free download from my PlayStation account. And again, I really got into that either. By all accounts, that was a multiplayer version of Fallout. And I think a lot of the fans said it didn't really live up to their expectations. So again, that didn't click with me either. But when I heard that the Fallout TV show was coming out, well, it did sort of pique my interest. Now, despite not knowing much about the game, there's a lot of the game content that is very sort of ingrained in the public consciousness, and particularly with gamers as well, the look and feel of the whole thing, with the whole Vault Tech, the Pip-Boy computers, the Vault suits, you name it, the power armour. You know, I've read so much about it, but never really sort of played it as a game. However, after watching Fallout the TV show, well, I'm now hooked on the game. I downloaded Fallout 4, and now I'm addicted to playing the damn thing. I can't put it down. So, why has Fallout the TV show got me hooked on Fallout 4, the computer game? Well, before I sort of get into that, let's start off with who's been cast in this show. First of all, we have Ella Purnell as Lucy McLean. We have Aaron Moten as Maximus, who's one of the Brotherhood of Steel. We have Carl McLachlan as Hank McLean, who's Lucy's father, and also the overseer of Vault 33. And then we have Walton Goggins as the Ghoul, who also has quite a long and varied sort of history which this TV show goes into. So, really, the premise of the show, and also the game as well, is that, well, the world has been annihilated by sort of nuclear devastation. People have been living in things called vaults, to help sort of, you know, keep mankind going, living underground till it was safe to return to the surface, and they would then repopulate the planet in this very, very sort of, how can I sort of say, very sort of, very sickly, sweet, typical, I don't want to offend any American viewers or listeners here, but that very, very, very American way of everything's wholesome and clean and pure. You know, and of course, it isn't really. It's got a very, very sort of nasty underbelly to everything, which the show goes into. So really, but what the Vault Dwellers don't know is above the surface, a lot of humankind has continued to exist and have mutated. And basically what happens in this particular show, and I think also in sort of Fallout 4 game as well, it's set 200 years after the first sort of nuclear Armageddon of 2077. Now, for those of you who don't sort of realise, why has this got sort of like a retro-futuristic feel to it? Well, it's like the world is sort of stuck in a strange sort of 1950s sort of aesthetic, really. It's sort of like the whole thing about sort of atomic-powered cars. You know, atomic was the future of the 1950s. And basically this just runs with that sort of premise. And it goes on for sort of a good few decades before nuclear annihilation. Now, the whole thing about this show, and you know, it's got a nasty sort of, as I said, a nasty underbelly to all of this, is that the nuclear Armageddon has been caused by, well, corporations. It's all the big plan of theirs to sort of, you know, repopulate the planet in their own image, really. You know, the utopian society. So you've got like Vault Tech and Robco and things like that. So there's these big conglomerates who have basically got together and instigated nuclear Armageddon. Now, I haven't really spoiled anything for you here, and you do see that in the show. But looking at the premise of any of the games, that's what's there basically. So, and all the people that are in the vaults, well, they're just big experiments. They're not really there to save humankind. It's an experiment on people. They're basically nothing more than lab rats, but living in this sort of strange, sort of wholesome American 1950s sort of atmosphere. The atomic family, if you want to call it that. So, so with that in mind, in this particular TV show, you've got three main protagonists, which is the Lucy McLean, the Ghoul, and Maximus from the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, it's difficult to explain exactly what each of these things are, but Lucy McLean, she grew up in one of the vaults, Vault 33, which was run by an overseer who is her father, played by Carl MacLachlan. So I don't really want to spoil it too much, but basically what happens, Lucy's father, Hank, he gets kidnapped by some raiders who come from above the surface. They've taken over one of the connected vaults, taken him away. Lucy goes to the surface and tries to track down her father, and then comes across Maximus, who's part of the Brotherhood of Steel, who desperately wants to be a knight. Basically, that's to wear the power armour. And, well, that's his story. Then you have the Ghoul, played by Walton Goggins. Now, he's interwoven into the whole Vault-Tec thing, sort of quite intricately, actually. And I think, really, I don't really want to spoil too much for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. It's going to be very difficult to talk about it with that. But anyway, he now basically was a human being. He's been alive for 200 years. He's mutated into a ghoul, and he's taken copious amounts of different drugs to basically keep himself alive and not turning it into... basic ghouls are meant to be feral as well. So they're like zombies, basically. So he's keeping that horrible urge hidden underneath with drugs, basically, but he looks like a zombie, basically, So, so with all this in mind, the three of them cross over. The Ghoul is not a particularly nice character at all. Neither is Maximus, for that matter. He's sort of a bit double dealing and everything. Lucy is the clean and wholesome character who then finds out that, well, basically the planet is nothing like she expected it to be. It's not ready to be repopulated. The people living above, well, they don't really care for vault dwellers, if I'm honest. So there you are. That's the premise of it. And then she's now trying to find her father. And then her brother, Norm, is still underground in one of the vaults. And he stumbles across the big conspiracy, again, which I'm not going to spoil for you if you haven't seen it yet. Now, I must admit, I was utterly gripped by this TV show. I just thought it was absolutely wonderful. It wasn't just the plot and the acting. It was incredibly gory in places as well. But it was just the whole look and feel of the show. They managed to capture the computer game to a T, basically. The vault suits in the TV show looked like the vault suits they wore in the computer game. The weapons looked like from the computer game. The ghouls looked like from the computer game in this. You had the Mr. Handy robots, again, looked exactly like they were in the computer game. Everything was absolutely spot on. And to be honest, the makers of the game were involved in the making of this particular TV show. So, so that really did sort of pay off in dividends, massive dividends, actually. So, really, I'm beginning to wonder, why can't other adaptations of computer games be this good? They've managed to capture the look, the feel, they've got a fantastic plot. It's not just an excuse to say, like, okay, this is the latest craze, like, say, like Mario Brothers, and we had that awful film with Bob Hoskins. Well, basically, there is no plot to it. It was just popular at the time. What's the plot to Mario Brothers? There's no plot in the game, is there? It's just a platformer. Okay, there is a little bit. People might argue that point with me, but hey, it doesn't make a film, and it was a flop. And they've just done another Mario film, which this time was animated, slightly different, I suppose you can say. But there's a lot of times where this has been done, so things like Assassin's Creed, that was awful. They just missed the whole point of the game. But in this, they've got it nailed down, absolutely nailed down. So even things sort of like, I mean, for argument's sake, the Pip-Boy, the personal computers, which are these massive things clamped to their wrists. And if you haven't played the game, you probably won't know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched the show, you won't know what I'm talking about either. But to be honest, it just, I can't really describe how much I absolutely adore this show. It's just amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And considering the sort of the last thing that I watched that Amazon Prime made, which was the Rings of Power TV series, which, to be honest, I didn't really much care for at the end because, well, it didn't sort of really amount to anything. There was a lot of sort of world building, and it was quite boring as well, actually. Nothing actually really happened. But in this, it's just off from the start. It's 8 episodes long, and it just fires off on all cylinders right from the beginning, and I absolutely adore it. Now, I know some people have got a little bit, and when I say some people, I mean long-term fans of the game who've been sort of playing this for years. And I say it ticks a lot of boxes with things going on, and I think really, if you're a fan of the game and you stick to the game lore, and there is an order of the history of what happens in things, they have played around with this a little bit. But as I'm not a fan of the game, well, not saying not a fan of the games, I don't know much about the games. I don't care, really. I don't care about the little history. Things have got to be changed for television. It's the same with anything. If you're making a film out of a book or of a long-running, a series of computer games that's got a proper sort of story through them, things are going to be adapted and changed for television. Things work in games and books that do not work on TV or film. And it's a fact of life. So for me, no point getting worried about it or annoyed about it or anything like that, because this, I think, is probably as good as we've had for a good many years now. And I think it's absolutely brilliant in its adaptation of the look and feel of the game. And I want more. I wanted more. The other thing I loved about this was the use of music as well. There was a lot of sort of the again 1950s style music used in this, particularly from artists such as Nat King Cole, the Platters, and the Ink Spots. Now, I'm quite aware of all this particular music because my mum was a fan of all three of those sort of groups and artists as well. So I sort of grew up listening to that in particular. So to hear it being used in the show, for me, was absolutely fantastic. There's also some Johnny Cash dropped in there as well, which my dad likes Johnny Cash. So again, I grew up listening to that kind of music as well. So I everything just clicked with me for this. It really did. But I forgot to say one thing, that my favourite character in this is Walton Goggins' take on the Ghoul. As I said, he's got quite a sort of troubled history when it comes to this, and I don't want to sort of spoil it for anybody, but his character was Cooper Howard originally, a famous Hollywood actor who's roped into advertising Vault-Tec, and he figures out the lie that he's been involved in, and in particularly his wife has been involved in as well, which leads to some shocking revelations. Again, I've probably given away a little bit too much there, which I'm sorry, but it's got to be done really, because it's difficult to talk about his character without mentioning that, because he's probably the most tragic character in the show, if I'm being perfectly honest. Also, Lucy McLean, she also has a rough journey in this as well, where her whole world is turned upside down, and all the things she believed in is, well, not what she expected it to be come the end. And again, I don't want to spoil it for you too much either. So obviously the Maximus character is part of the Brotherhood of Steel. Now, the power armor suits, again, are exactly like they are in the computer game. It's amazing. And the thing is as well, they are practical effects. There's no CGI used to put those suits together. So I think some people complained it looks a bit fake in places, but for me, it makes it more tangible. So if you see them in a fight scene, As you'd expect, really. These things are big, they're powerful, but they're very cumbersome. So they're no good in sort of close quarters combat, which is proven to be the case in this show. And as Maximus finds out as well, actually. So I think it's absolutely spot on. But his character, hard to warm to begin with, I should say. He's a bit of a coward. He seems to stumble into situations and then lies his way all the way through it as well. So he's difficult to like, but come the end, you do. But even at the end, when you think he's a bit of a changed character, not really. He reverts to type and goes along with the lie. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because season 2 has already been greenlit. Now, the way it finishes, it's definitely set up to carry on again. There's no sort of definitive end to the character arcs, really. And basically it ends on a big reveal of New Vegas. Now, for the fans of the game, New Vegas was another one of the iterations of Fallout, and I think people are sort of get generally quite excited about it. So am I, despite not knowing anything about Fallout New Vegas. So, yeah, I'm so looking forward to it. And I would say, if you haven't watched Fallout on Amazon Prime, I'd say please go and watch it. I really don't think you'll be disappointed. I really don't. And if you haven't got Amazon Prime, find some other way to view it, I would say. I'm not advocating piracy here, but I'd track it down if you can, because you will not be disappointed. I thought it was absolutely amazing. Even if you're not a fan of the games, the just whole look and feel, the show, the story, the characters, I think it's amazing. I really, really do. And I don't think I've been this effusive about a show for such a very, very long time. So I'm walking away from this very, very happy, actually. And I'm late to the party with my review. I did watch it some time ago, but I just wanted to sort of ruminate on this a little bit more, and really, rather than writing a script about it, I just wanted to just wax lyrical off the cuff. So forgive me if it's not I'm not going to say polished output that I usually do, because it certainly isn't that. But hey, I just wanted to be this, well, I'm going to say from the heart. That sounds really corny, but no, this really is my gut reaction to it. So there you go, everybody. So I'm not too sure what I'm going to do my next Who's He TV, or Who's He at the Movies for that matter, because for those of you who listen to our audio-only show, Doctor Who is back on the television, so that's where most of the content will be. It will be on our audio podcasts. So until next time, everybody, bye for now.